At 6:30, we'll call Sawyer County Public Works Committee meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call a roll, please.
Ron Kinsley.
Here.
Ed Peters.
Here.
Chris Ross.
Here.
Mark Hellwig.
Here.
Brian Bissonnette.
Here.
Thank you. Let the record indicate we have a quorum. 3 board members are here. 2 members are virtual. Mr. Bissonnette, Mr. Helwig are virtual. Next item is pledge allegiance. Please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Number 4, certification and compliance with open meeting laws.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 5 is the meeting agenda. If the committee will allow, I'd like to change number 10 after the minutes of number 7, please. So 10 would follow 7. We'll need a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Ruff, second by Mr. Peters. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is public comment. There's 2 people that filled out forms for public comment. And I assume there's other people that would probably like to speak. Ms. Zilmer, would you like to start us, please?
Thank you. I'm speaking to the item number 10 that you just moved forward. I want to thank the committee and the highway commissioner for starting the work on doing the ordinance, and we're helping clarify the process and how road routes can be regulated. It's an increasing usage problem. I have witnessed in Washburn County now, they adopted a new ordinance in the spring of 2021, and they've gone for a year of implementation. And it looked really smooth, and I watched it from the perspective of the clubs. We have the Birchwood Bobcats that they were looking to open routes this year. It was a very clear process, a very clear ordinance. Everyone knew what was expected. And I think the once a year review and consideration of new routes makes it easier on everyone. So I was encouraged to see that. And I guess my question is I think there'll be a lot of input on the first draft, and who will be the facilitator to collect all the public input? How will that work to come back to the committee, just when we get into that discussion? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Slender.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here on 1.5 issues. First is I'm here to speak on item 10A on behalf of the Lac Tribal Government. And I'd like to get clarification before I speak, Mr. Chairman, is that I know that public comment reserves for 3 minutes. I would ask that I would be given also some consideration to address the board or the committee during the presentation of the item. And if that's possible, then that will definitely shrink my public comments at this point.
This is the time to speak, please.
All right, so let me just state on the record then that the Lac Tribe would humbly ask the county to consider postponing any action on the ATV UTV ordinance until such time that the county has an opportunity to fully meet with the tribal governing board. There's a concern that with the county exercising jurisdiction over roads that may be existing on reservation, that there could be question of ownership and a question of regulatory authority. By opening up the roads, you're inviting people who are not tribal members into the jurisdiction of the tribe, and that they would be subject to citation and potential other either forfeitures or other actions that would probably negatively impact their ATV, UTV experience. There's been other discussions with other townships, and the townships have agreed to at least postpone this formal action until there could be a conversation with the tribal governing board to discuss some of the concerns. The primary concern is the volume. Some of it's trail maintenance. Some of it has to do with access to sites that would be considered sacred sites on the reservation, burial grounds, other areas of historical significance that ATV users who are not tribal members would not be able to properly identify, and they would probably would like to know that so that they could, show the proper deference. The tribe doesn't have a specific opposition to ATV and UTV usage, and that there is no position the tribe is taking on any opening of routes that are off reservation. They just want consideration and a chance to meet to discuss and potentially implement regulations that would benefit the tribe and the ATV and UTV operators. So that's part one. Second is, I want to congratulate the county board on the construction of the Ron Kinsley courtroom addition. I am looking forward to that successful, operation and such going forward. And that concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Slender. Mr. Middleton, did you want to speak now?
I guess, yes, if I may. I guess I have concerns about the draft on that ordinance that was written, and the fact that the Alliance was not involved in the draft of it. I know it's not completed right now, but there's several items in that draft that we're opposed to.
Okay, would you like to point them out, please?
The number one, in 202, trend E, is a time limit that there be no ATVs from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. using the roads. There's several concerns about that what happens if somebody is out later at night, how they're gonna get back to their home or to their business. The request for once a year. I mean, in the past, we've been doing this whenever issues come up. Right now, the Alliance is getting a lot of requests for opening up roads. And once a year is kind of a handicap for us on doing it. It has not been an issue in the past. We're hoping it won't be an issue in the future. Quite frankly, actually, what we'd like to see is all the roads open right now. So the county to open up all the highways. I mean, we're probably over 20 counties in the state now that have opened up all highways. And we have another 15 or so that are open 75% or more of their highways. So of course, if that were to happen, then we wouldn't need to worry about the once a year factor. But you're seeing more and more ATVs. Talked about it at economic development meeting here, how important it is. I think the county realizes how important it is with COVID here when that hit. Instead of Sawyer County losing money, our sales tax went up. The county needs a lot of that sales tax money. It's huge. ATVs have a big thing in there. Further down, the Alliance is responsible, according to this, for the funding of the signage and for paying the county highway department to install the signs. I guess we're looking at how important this is maybe the county should actually take care of that now. Instead of the Alliance having to foot the bill on that, this is important for the county. So we're asking that the county do the funding on that. Not opposed to LCO, working with LCO on them looking at the routes and such like that. It's just a concern with timely manner on getting back that we can decide what it is. So those are my major concerns there.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak regarding that ATV UTV ordinance? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Number 7, consider approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of June 8th.
Approval.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Rust to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Let's go to number 10, Highway Commissioners Report. Mr. Gephardt, welcome. Thank you.
You want to do the report or the,
Let's review the ATV UTV route request.
okay, because the reports, I think at the last.
Yeah.
Okay. So last month, the committee tasked me with starting a ATV, UTV ordinance. Sawyer County did not have an ordinance. We had a resolution. Upon researching other counties, neighboring counties, I found out we were way out of, we're out of times. Everyone has an ordinance. We're the only ones that had a resolution. So I requested copies of all the ordinances, went through, reviewed them all, and then I just kind of went through and picked the items out that were common factors in all the ordinances. There are some things in there that I pulled from some counties that weren't in others. But that's ultimately up to the committee. And I guess I'm a little confused myself how this, maybe we didn't broadcast it enough. But it was my understanding in talking with both Andy and you that this was the first kick at the cat. I mean, we didn't even have this. So, I mean, I appreciate the comments and all, but our process was we were going to look at it as a committee and send it out to all our stakeholders, at which time they would review it. Unfortunately, with public open records, everyone sees this. I understand it was talked about in another committee before the committee of jurisdiction. So a little confused on that. But anyway, this is what I came up with. You guys can do whatever you want with it, because I really I'm not an ATV, I'm not ATV pro or against, whatever. I just use this as a basis for drafting it for you guys. And it's your tool to work with on form it however you guys want to form it. You won't hurt my feelings if you took the whole thing and threw it away. I mean, really, I just did it for you guys to help you out and get you going, and
It's much appreciated. You have to have a starting point if we're going to get anywhere with it.
there are some things that I would highlight that you might want to change. And the speed limits, we all know, I talked last month that speed limits weren't legal a year or so ago. That's now become law. I just put in there on item C of 2.02, ATVs and UTVs shall be operated within applicable speed limits. You guys could determine if you want to set your own speed limit, say 35 miles an hour or posted speed, whichever is less. I'm just throwing it out. There's things I've seen.
What have some of the other counties done with speed limits?
That's what a lot of them have done. And as far as the operation between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., there's some of them that are more restrictive. They're sundown to sunrise. So I don't know. I just put that in there, but that's up to the committee. You guys make your decision what you want to do. I also did still leave in the request going through the local jurisdiction minutes, if you guys want to keep that in there or not. I know that was a sticking point for one of the route requests, because the two townships it lies within were not willing to accept it, even though we had no problem with it. So that's something you might want to consider. And then also it was the review of the annual review of the new route request. We review all our renewals in February and thought we could do the same thing with this. Yes, I know there's a new route request, but I mean, we were getting bombarded every month. I've looked at some of my past minutes and it was every month we had requests coming up. And if the committee doesn't mind, I guess that's fine. But and the signage, there's no real wiggle room on signage. We will be doing the signage. We will be doing the signage. We have to. I can't, in my capacity, allow clubs to go out and sign. We are the sole authority for the roadways. So however that works out, but that's something we can't change. That was in every one of them.
Okay.
And
Question.
yeah,
Gary, what is the cost of the signage?
well,
Produce some, put them up. I know Don was mentioning maybe the county should take that over. Because we do all that sales tax. It's a big profit for the county.
well, if the county wanted a budget
Well, I'm just
for
wondering
us,
what
I don't
that
know.
is,
It's hard to make a determination on that. We don't know what signs are right now. We don't purchase them. We don't install them. I mean, but a typical sign installation would be procuring the sign, the post, digger's hotline, 3-day waiting period, installation. So, there's labor costs, there's machinery costs involved in that. And I've never had issue or reason to calculate that out. It's a cost I don't want to bear as a highway department unless we can get some funding for it.
Mr. Peters, got any comments?
Well, I guess it sounds like this is coming to the committee for revisions or for evaluation and.
Direction.
Correct, yeah, corrections or whatever.
Direction, how to handle it.
Direction.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably going to be a couple months process in order to get this done. I mean, you spent a good amount of time just getting this first draft ready. I don't think that we can probably expect to have a polished object in place by next month or anything like that. So
No, it would be my suggestion that I work with the chairman and the administrator and find out, I think we've identified who a lot of the stakeholders are. We knew that going into it.
Mhm.
Send it out to them, and open up comment, say next month, have it on there. Yeah, you're right. It's probably going to be a 2 to 3 month process. Because if you accept comment next month on it, and the following month, you come back with the revision, and maybe that's not going to be to the liking of the committee. So
been through plenty.
I think we knew this going into it, though.
Mr. Chair, could you also have that sent out to the committee so that we can look at it and tweak it if we want?
Yes, absolutely. You have it on the agenda now and it's out there.
Well, true, thank you.
The updates will be out there. Yes, Mr.
I think Gary and I talked about this, and Gary and I talked pretty much right away after the last meeting. And you got on top of pulling together those other county ordinances. There's also the resolution that was already in effect. We tried to work in the kind of the framework that was already there for the trail approvals by having some local initiative at the local level. So I think the stakeholders are actually identified in the ordinance as far as the townships, the trail alliance, and the LCO are all stakeholder, the primary ones I would see. And
Those three are mentioned in the
they
ordinance,
are,
yes.
they have a role in the approval process. So definitely, the idea was to get this, something put together that could be essentially torn apart or tweaked and then by the stakeholders.
And that was very unique to Sawyer County. None of the other ones have that. They don't request township, or they don't have LCO to work with. We work cooperatively with LCO on all these things, and I send all our utility permits to LCO if they're within that reservation boundaries. So it was just kind of a no-brainer to put that in there.
But I also like it getting out to the towns. I like them to have to approve stuff also.
Yeah.
Mr. Russ, got comments
I think we're good
right now? Mr. Bissonnette?
I would just say things like Gary, it's good seeing at least a first draft. And I'll pass this along to the tribal governing board so that they can take a look at it. But it's, like you said, it's the first kick of the, I don't know if you said cat or can, but regardless, it looks pretty good for a starting point. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howing?
I agree that for a first draft, it's very well done. Thank you, Gary, for putting this together for us.
Thank you. Yes.
Chairman, can I mention one thing? What would the committee do if we ran into a situation where we had a request for a route and it was a pretty critical thing and the town said no to it? It's just dead then?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly how to deal with that, but I guess the first thing that would happen is I would like to myself call the town chairman and get their side of the story. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we also talked about bringing corporate counsel into the equation as well, get their opinion.
Well,
And I did have a question for Andy. Andy, do other counties have this similar ordinance like the other 20 counties Don was talking about that opened up all roads or most of the roads?
Like Gary said, nearly all counties have an ordinance.
They have similar ordinances
Yep.
that start out just like us in page 3,
Yeah.
section 3, with all this. And then right below that, there's a little paragraph that this is all Xed out and it says effective such and such date.
Or I've seen the reverse.
They all
of it.
started out walking.
Yeah, they keep on adding to
Yeah.
them. And then I've seen the ones that
Right.
say, you know, like Gary said, they have one listed and then they go the other way and say all county roads except
Right.
these
They
two.
just strike that and then they just
Oh,
put it
except
in there.
these two stretches, yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just want to put in my 2 cents for us. I would not agree with opening up all roads of the county ever. I think we have to do, as we've been doing, go, one by one, because like Gary has checked them out in the past, as far as, the safety and all that kind of stuff. We just can't arbitrarily open up the whole county.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll put together, add some stuff in, yes.
Yeah, I guess maybe just as a process point, I mean, it's out, it's been presented to the committee. At this point, I mean, the tribal government knows about it and the Trail Alliance. And I think it'd be helpful if they would come back and put some formal comments together to get to Gary that we can work with.
Yeah, I'm giving to Gary.
I think that's, yeah.
I was hoping you would say Andy.
I spoke first.
I think I may have already sent it to LCO. I'm just checking here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would just ask that if you're gonna send it to LCO, send it to me. And that way I could, I'll be the one that's gonna be working on it anyway.
Okay.
Does he have your email?
I don't have his email. No.
Mr. Slund?
It's happylawyer@gmail.com. It's james.schlender, lconsn.gov.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Slund. We okay with that? Sure, some of the audience, if they have some comments that you want to give to Gary in the future, to help draw things in, feel free to do that. They'll be back on the agenda. Okay? Letter B, ordinance process conditions and back moratorium until ordinance is adopted. What are we going to do there?
Andy, what do you?
Yeah, I know. I think the discussion was, in the meantime, do we want to just put a stop on, because I think there's been more contacts about additional openings. Do you want to put essentially a moratorium on any additional approvals until the ordinance is adopted? Or do you, I understand this could be a 2-3 month process. Do you want to consider them still, or do you want to just put a stop in place until the ordinance is adopted?
Why don't we see if anybody applies in the meantime and deal with it as it comes?
Okay.
Because it's not like they're going to come right away. Do you know of any coming presently?
Okay. I actually, can you just repeat that? I'm sorry, Andy.
Oh, yeah, we have on here, all the ordinances in the assembly phase until it gets adopted. Do we want to consider any new ATV trail approvals or put a stop on them until the ordinance is done?
Okay, that's what I thought you said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Is there anything in the pipeline right now that you know of?
I have a lot in the pipeline. And I just took 2 more in today that I haven't started working on, but we have a lot.
How fast do you think they're coming in front of us? May I ask?
Some of that, they're all in different stages. We're waiting to go to township meetings because, as you know, we have to get approval from the township for anything that involves the county road before we can bring it. Several of them I've already got a preliminary okay from the highway department. And then once I get that, then I move forward with the township. That involves surveying people, which is time consuming. So some of them we're waiting for surveys back before we can even get on the agenda with the township within a few months, certainly before the end of the year.
So by the time we get done with the ordinance may be in place by that time.
Probably could be.
Just,
We'll deal with it as it comes.
And I, between the ordinance and the resolution and the process we've already had, I don't think the ordinance changes much of all the legwork the Alliance does with their work anyway.
How will that affect it though, if the ordinance goes through and we keep the January date and I'm at the 11th hour with some of these, like say in October, does that mean we'll have to wait until
No,
that January date?
correct me if I'm wrong, Gary. We'd like to know in January if you know if one's coming forward. We've approved one after that. But it's just a guide to help guide us. If you know of stuff coming in January, it's to bring us abreast of where we're at.
Sure, okay.
Well, the ordinance, way it's set up is there's a date certain in January where we're asking for them.
Right. So do we keep that? Do we?
That's
That's a question.
Second Wednesday in January. And I just looked calendar wise, like that gave me enough time to get it to LCO, to get it, whatever, to get comment back for our meeting in February.
Yeah. Okay. Does that help?
Certainly does.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
would we want to consider maybe, say, twice a year that they would be able to put those in?
Please send your comments to the highway commissioner and we'll look at it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other things we need to cover? If not, let's go to the commissioner's report, please.
Okay, I've got quite a few, additions and some, now I'll say corrections, but updates. So the large culvert, the first paragraph on the commissioner's report, that's gonna go on Monday, this coming Monday, the road will be closed for a period of 3 days, Monday through Wednesday. And then second paragraph, we do have, it says there were 2 mowers out, 1 on county. A second mower will be placed on the state this coming Monday. So we'll have 4 mowers out on Monday. Interviews, we have the vacancy. We're conducting interviews on Tuesday, July 19th for the vacant position at Radisson Shop. This is from Mr. Helwig. WISDOT has been contacted regarding the traffic signal at the intersection of US 63 and Kansas. Everything is operating fine. The traffic volumes there are actually anticipated to be less than they were. It's more of a hassle to come down there now. But they actually sat out there. I talked to the engineer. They got a laptop. They sit there and they watch, and it shows right on their computer the vehicle approaching, and it's timed that way intentionally. The main drag is what gets priority. So it's functioning right. The loop detectors are working. I just avoid that area. It's slow.
Thank you very much, Gary, for checking into that. Appreciate it.
And then we've got 3 projects, which I had previously reported we were approved for funding with DOT. One of them is County Road E, the north end of County Road E from Norwest Road out to B. And that's now has an approved state municipal agreement. So that means we can begin consultant selection for a design consultant. And then the 2 bridge deck replacements, I've got in there, they will be done as soon as WISDOT finishes approvals. I actually signed the SMAs, the state municipal agreements for those 2 bridge decks today. So I should be hearing something soon. I'd like to do all the selections at one time. So what we've done in the past is we've had a little dog and pony show where we have the consultants come in and give us a little blurb about how they do the design on the roadway, how they do the design on the deck replacements, and that's pretty simple. When it's comes to full bridges, there's some differences. So I don't know if we'll have them come in and do that or if we'll just go on past performance. It's what they call quality-based selection. So we can't ask for any prices. You go based on reputation, past experience. you know, their work history, their staffing. Those are the criteria you look when you rank them. And then this is kind of an interesting thing. I just was contacted by Northwest Regional Planning Commission. So you guys we're in the heart of the north, or we're in the heart of the North County. We're one of the Rusk, Barron, Sawyer, and Washburn are heart of the north. So this gentleman from Northwest Regional Planning Commission would like to apply for funding. Many of us don't have a local road safety plan. They're pretty important for trying to get funding for safety projects. And, you know, we're talking about the intersection of B&K as a possible roundabout. A lot of funds out there, but if you don't have a safety plan, good luck, you know. So anyway, he's trying to get that formulated, so we would do a group application. We tried to include LCO in it. Unfortunately, LCO has a local road safety plan. It's really not, it's a really bad plan. It's really brief, and it's, if you guys have you ever seen it, Tweed?
No.
It's not good. It isn't good. It may not even meet the criteria for a safety plan. If that's the case, then they can partner with the county.
Maybe they can update theirs.
Yeah, so I'm working with LCO right now. I'm working with Nita Camp. I'm working with Jordan St. Germain in the grants department. And that was completed by a firm called Coleman Engineering. It was a couple of years ago they did the plan, and they contacted me for comment. And I look back at my comments on my email, and I specifically, the only comment I gave them was the area of B&K from the golf course and the casino. And it never even never made mention in the whole report. The only thing I commented on. So it's got to be tweaked. It's got to be tweaked to include that, because without LCO and without Sawyer County having any mention of it in a safety plan, no one's going to take a second look at it, you know? So, and I just spoke with Jordan St. Germain today regarding this.
Okay. Mr. Russell.
Gary, so, you know, I chair the board over at the golf course, so I'm kind of in and out of there a lot. I think it'd be a good idea if we do move farther with that, if we could make double lane all the way out to like Chippewa Trail. Because you got Ultimate coming off there, you got the golf course, the power company.
That's been discussed, Chris. It has, because we've got multiple turnoffs through there.
Right.
When it started out, it was one. We started out with one business. Then we went to another, then we went to another. And now we have 4 businesses out there with 3 turnoffs.
Right. There's a lot of traffic.
It's confusing. If you get off to the right, then your lane ends.
Possibly getting, yeah, right.
Then you got a sliver, a little pork chop of gravel there, and then you go on to another piece of blacktop.
Right.
So, yeah, that's something I think we could work in the realm of safety with the roundabout.
The Northwest Regional Planning doing the safety plan, they give us a price, what it's gonna cost to do everything.
Yeah, they did. It's a 90-10 cost share. They didn't give us a price on what they would charge. And I don't know what that is, but the approximate cost of a safety plan they figured was $50,000. And that would mean, I'm sorry, it was a 80-20. It was 80-20 cost share. So we would be responsible for $10,000 of the safety plan. Now, to put that in perspective with the safety plan that was done by LCO, they paid $7,500 for Coleman Engineering. So, you know, it's not the level of a plan that would be done on this. The plan LCO has is very, very superficial. It just addresses some things.
It was probably a starting point, like anything, things change and they have to update. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Other questions for Gary?
I just have one comment. Gary, I'm Murray supervisor, so I'll get on this within the next day or so. If Tweed doesn't assign me to something else.
Okay. Yeah, you were originally involved in the safety plan?
No, I
Your
wasn't.
name was mentioned in an email I just had. Okay.
Was it good or bad?
No, it was mentioned in a good way that they would be working with Ryan Bissonette to get a hold of Coleman and maybe make some revisions.
Yeah.
So you got
I'll
a
take a
job
look at
coming
it.
you didn't know you had.
Yeah, well, I get a lot of them, so.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, Gary? Gary, thanks for putting that ordinance together, getting it started, and for all you do on it. If it's okay with the committee, let's move to number 9, Sawyer County Airport report. We'll come back to number 8, maintenance. Mr. Leslie.
Good evening, folks. First of all, any questions on my report? It's been busy out at the airport. This is the busiest time of the year. Today alone, I think we're going to have about a dozen jets, probably just as many prop planes in and out. So there's lots of things happening out there, things as we speak, and I'm here instead, which is fine. I've got good guys out there to cover me. So in the last month, I've been working with Tim. We've been getting some lights fixed out at the airport. I texted Tim back and forth before the meeting tonight. Airport's in really good shape right now. As far as airfield lighting, our pavements, our mowing, all of our gates are working. I haven't had any people complain for a while. We're in pretty good shape out there, so I'm happy. Like I said in the report, the FBO sales have been staying with where they were at the previous couple of years, so that makes me happy as well. And we had a couple events over the course of the last month. The Young Eagles is always a really nice event to have out there, and the first half of the day was a rain day, so we had probably about 75 people in and out of the terminal building for about 2 hours. That was a lot. In 1,500 square feet, that's a lot to handle, but we made do, and it worked really well, and a bunch of kids got to go up flying. I was surprised by how many kids had actually already done it before. It seems like it's they have a sheet on there, and they bring it with them each and every year, and they could use those hours towards actually getting their pilot's license in the future. It's a pretty sweet deal for the kids. So a lot of kids actually got their second flight. One was third flight, 3 years consecutive at our airport. And then the pancake feed went off last weekend, thanks to the board of supervisors who came to help support the Civil Air Patrol. The event wasn't as big as they probably would have hoped it would have been, but I think it was just nice to do it. I think everyone appreciated the fact that the world's returned to some sort of sense of normalcy, and for them, just having it and just going through the motions meant a lot. So I'm working with the leadership at the CAP to try to figure out what we might be able to do going into next season to try to draw some more folks in. Potentially doing it on a different day.
Weekends are good.
Yeah. Yep. We've got a couple things on the agenda past this for hangar leases. And I suppose I'll just reserve my comments for that as they come. I don't know if some supervisors might have questions. Anything else?
Any questions for Mr. Leslie?
I have a question.
Yes.
Derek, you said that there's a lot more activity going on, planes coming in and out. Do you have personnel out there 24/7?
No, it's not 24/7. One of my employees tonight for Hayward Aviation, he's going to be out there till about 10 o'clock tonight, I think, or later, waiting for an aircraft arrival. I think in the last month, last time I checked, we had 5 after-hour call-outs for Life Flight. This is the time of the year when Life Flight's really active. So anytime, typically if Life Flight, whether it's LifeLink, North Memorial, typically when they do patient pickups, it's just transport to Duluth. And if they do transport to Duluth, they don't need fuel. But pretty much anywhere other than Duluth, they have to have fuel. There's no fuel at the helipad. So we're available 24/7, but our hours, our posted hours are 10 hours a day.
So I have a follow-up. So how do these pilots know that the airport is clear to land?
Well, it's part of the job that you pay an airport manager to do is to make sure that the runways run every day. to make sure that the lights are on 24/7. We do our FOD runs and our runway safety checks every single day, and that's 365 days a year. We're driving up and down the runway to make sure that there's nothing out there. Sometimes I'll make a couple trips a day out the runway. Typically, if there's ever any storms, I like to make trips up and down the runway and make sure no debris is drifted out.
Well, excuse me, but my question is more not far as objects on the runways, but it's more going along far as planes being on the runway. How do they know that the runway is clear of a plane?
Well, Mr. Helwig, the planes have landing lights on them. They're kind of like floodlights or high beams on your car. They have visual references as well. As the aircraft are landing, the pilots can see the lights along the side of the runway. That's why we have to make sure that the lights are always on. There's not lights that are off, because if all of a sudden a pilot has a visual reference, then that visual reference disappears. More often than not, there's something in between you and that light. So that's why it's important to make sure the runway lights are always on. And, go ahead.
It's uncontrolled airspace, so it's
Yeah.
pilots radio between themselves to indicate when they're landing, when they've cleared the runway. So they communicate amongst themselves.
Okay.
That's 24/7,
Yeah.
During the day, they do
Very
that.
much. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
Thank you.
We're a couple of years away from a control tower, right?
Oh, you got it.
Let's move on to letter B. Update hangar lease template. Andy?
So we talked about this last month, and I apologize that last month, between myself being new and the attorney being new, we edited the wrong hangar template. So we caught that here earlier this week, and we edited the template you had approved last year in the spring. Same language changes though, of adding in the aeronautical use for the FAA language. The correct leases are in the agenda now, and the changes to the lease you already approved are highlighted. Again, it's all specific to the aeronautical use clarification. So we'd be looking just for the committee to approve those and go to the board. So as we move forward now, this will be the new template we'll use for all leases.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve as corrected.
Motion by Mr. Helwig to approve. Is there a second? Mr. Russ, a second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Do you have a comment?
Yes, sir. My name is Mike Kelsey. I represent Refreshment Services, or the Beckies, who have one of the hangars, and I forwarded everything from last month from Mr. Alvarado. He sent that, and I did not get a response back from him from one day for that. I just want to make sure that we still have some negotiation, or I can sit down with Mr. Alvarado or Mr. Leslie just out of some specifics I forwarded to him on some, not concerns, but just questions I had, sir. I just want to make sure on that.
Are we talking about the template itself?
Yeah, which we had, that's the thing that I couldn't, when I sent it to my client, I couldn't respond to me in one day. And I wanted to know, are we going to pass that? Is that going to be it? I want to know so I can let my client know what's going on.
That's something we should wait another month.
No, I mean, I think what you can do is approve the template. Then item D is the Becky lease.
Okay.
Using that template, you could approve that to the board. If we have to make any changes, do that after.
Because the template's not it's just a template. I mean, there's going to be, especially if there's FBO hangar leases, there's going to be some changes periodically to that template.
So we have a motion by Mr. Helwig, second by Mr. Russ. Mr. Russ. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Letter C, hangar lease sales request.
So what this is there's a sale of a hangar. You've got the purchase agreement. It's between Veronica Walters and Show Properties, Hayward LLC. Show Properties is already a hangar owner for another hangar, so there's somebody we're familiar with. What we have is a resolution to approve there's less than 1 year left on Veronica Walters' lease. So rather than doing a transfer of a lease, they prefer that we just do a brand new lease with show property. So what you have is the new lease with them. It's a 20-year lease under the terms that you established last year in the template with the amended language in it. So you have the hangar lease there, as well as the resolution to approve it and voids the prior leases and moves this forward for them to be able to complete their transaction.
Questions for the committee?
Sure.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ross, second by Mr. Peters. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Letter D.
Letter D is what Attorney Kelsey just mentioned. So we had briefly discussed this last month that the Becky lease for their hangar is up. They had a 20-year original lease plus the renewal. We're in need of a new lease there. I had forwarded the lease last month to the attorney who sent it to his clients, but then I had to send him the correct lease here this week. That's why he hasn't got, the time, the turnarounds are too quick to get any feedback from them. But same thing, similar to the Shell lease. So this is a new 20-year lease. And, using the template and the new rates and all that. And the resolution, again, approves the new lease and voids the prior lease.
Is there any reason we should hold it up for them to look at it prior?
Mr. Becky and I last week went through the old one, and what I saw from yesterday when I got from Mr. I think you can do it subject to Mr. Alvarado and I, or Mr. Leslie and I talking. I don't think there's anything substantive that needs to be addressed at this point, because you have to treat everybody fairly. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you. What's the wishes of the committee?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ross, second by Mr. Peters to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Letter E, update master plan process, runway projects.
I asked Andy to put this on the agenda. We had some conversation about it a few weeks ago. It's been kind of part of an ongoing conversation. And I guess the big thing that I want to discuss with committee tonight is we've got a couple big projects happening out at the airport right now. The big one that is an agenda item on there underneath this, our runway rehab project. We're well along the way for design for that. I had a conference call yesterday with our state engineer. We have our engineer for the project here in the room tonight. Carl's here, so thanks, Carl. Before Andy came on, and I'd say kind of as committee has changed over the years, the involvement on these airport improvement projects is kind of trying to figure out what to bring to committee and what not to, what decisions should be made at a committee level, what decisions be made between, the three of us potentially and the stakeholders at the airport. Before Andy got brought on, I got a copy of it here. We had a scoping meeting that was sent out to all the stakeholders at the airport. We met in this room. Mike Keefe was there, Tom Hoff was there, both of our engineers on the state and Becker Hoppy level, as well as Link, a bunch of other stakeholders from the airport were present at that meeting, discussing the scope of what we're gonna accomplish. What are our goals? What are the objects that we're gonna try to improve at the airport? And now with the transfer of leadership down on the county level, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows what's happening out at the airport. We have improvement projects that are happening. There are milestone decisions that come and go throughout the process. One of them is on the agenda. It's runway grooving. For the most part, for all of our projects, it's pretty clear cut. The runway is, we're redoing the runway exactly as it was before. The runway width, the runway length, the dimensions aren't changing. It's not a total reconstruction. It's just a rehab of the existing pavement. One of the things that we've identified, and I've got a memo from Becker Hoppy. I also have correspondence back and forth with the state of Wisconsin that we've identified that grooving the runway pavement surface is something that would be able to drastically improve the safety for aircraft landing and taking off at the airport. And the big thing is because obviously if the runway is wet, the braking conditions are going to be drastically reduced. And airports everywhere are doing this. We've got a bunch on this sheet. There's 3 competitive airports in our region that are 2 or 3 in the same year or the next year thereafter that are airports, municipalities, just like Sawyer County, that are also going to be doing this. We have a lot of folks involved out at the airport, just like you've seen tonight with the ATV Alliance. There's a lot of stakeholders involved. And right now, this is a big one that we want to make sure that it's brought to the county level and that it's basically given an opportunity for the public to be able to see it on an agenda and know that this is something that we are considering. At this point in time, it's been recommended by Becker Hoppy. It's been approved by the State Bureau of Aeronautics. And the FAA is in the process of reviewing what Becker Hoppy is building, which is the scope of the project. So it's just, you know, kind of setting maybe tensions at ease, just making sure that things are on the record, that we don't have problems months down the road. So we have people here that could talk about this tonight. I don't know if we need to. I guess if Andy could speak to it as well, because Andy has a lot of airport manager experience as well. If we want to talk about things more, if board supervisors have concerns about the way we're moving forward, now would be a good time to bring it up.
I think there's 2 parts to the conversation. One is, I think this is, like Derek's saying, this is an example of a detail that do you want involvement at the committee level on, or is this something we discuss with the engineers and take their recommendation and move ahead? So that's part of this as an example. But then the runway grooving, just I think my interpretation is that I can see the people in the room, like assuming you guys are the aviators or the pilots.
Yes.
So when they fly a plane, and this really is helpful to them, bigger planes, it's going to be probably an annoyance to some of our smaller planes because of the vibration or
Yeah.
There's really no benefit. They have no problem stopping. Yeah. And so that might be where there's some local concern and how it affects different planes different ways. You can explain it.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Carl Kemper. I'm with Becker Hoppy Associates. You're correct. Some small aircraft owners might have concerns over grooving the runway. I'm a small aircraft owner. I flew into the airport this afternoon. I have no concerns with grooving the runway. I have no concerns with operating on a grooved runway surface. I think most people who have concerns with it, I'd be curious as to what their concerns are, and if those concerns are actually substantive. If they actually do cause any issues or any discomfort or anything like that while operating on the runway. I mean, a small aircraft like myself, I'm probably on the runway for a total of about 10 to 45 seconds every time I take off or land. It's not very long. As Andy and Derek have both said, the safety benefits for large jet type aircraft are real. There's very large safety benefits for those type aircraft. It allows them to maybe get in and out of the airport under worse conditions, like when the runway is wet. So it really is, a benefit from the county, or a benefit to the county, both from a safety perspective and to the operators, but also from a financial perspective. It really should increase the amount of fuel flowage that the county would see, because the aircraft are getting in and out more often.
Does doing something like that to the airport drive more traffic our way as opposed to going to one that doesn't?
Would have done 3 times yesterday.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm not joking either.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I had a pilot yesterday, went out back and forth to the runway about 5 times, standing on the runway, kind of waving a fan, waiting for it to dry so he could actually take off. Yeah, and they went all the way to Van Nuys, California. So they needed the performance numbers to be able to legally take off. And it's a big difference between whether it's wet or dry. And if it's grooved, it's just always considered dry. for the most part.
So the question is, how are we going to keep people informed of what's going on? So if the three of you want to communicate, my opinion, if the three of you want to communicate, but still I want to report every month at the committee meeting so we are abreast of what's going on. Any other committee have comments regarding that? That's the way we do it, move forward.
Thanks for coming, Carl.
Mr. Howard?
No, excuse me, I was just saying, yep, for as I agree with what you say, I apologize. Didn't realize I was on.
All right. I apologize to you three about the way the meeting started. I know you were first on the agenda, but I'd like to get rid of the biggest crowd as I can first. So I apologize and thank you. All right, we have maintenance to take care of. Number 8. Mr. Hagberg gave us a maintenance report, a written report. Do I have any questions regarding that? Andy, anything you want to add, please?
No, I don't have anything to add here. I'll maybe add it on the construction.
Like, if you tell, yes.
So, Andy, what about the Oasis building and that? Is that, are you gonna talk about that later or is that?
No, he's got it in his report where he's at with it. There's still some finishing touches to do on the construction side, but we're waiting. We also will be waiting for, for furniture. The furniture had to be ordered. There's a lead time on that.
Yeah.
So we don't want to, we're not gonna move until everything's ready for them to move in.
This is probably not the place, but can I ask why that department moved over to the Oasis building? Or you want me to disregard, want to disregard that, Mr. Chair?
No, I think maybe I'll let Andy, you want to tackle that?
I can try to tap. I don't know that I have a good answer as to why. When the space was vacated, there was a discussion. I believe Tom and Paul and Tim, they looked at what the needs were for the space. They thought that side of the building would make a nice service center, combining EDRC and veteran service who have some crossover clientele. That's the best story I can give you as to why it was determined to move them down there. I think that happened beginning of the year.
Mr. Helwig, I know that I had that conversation with Mr. Huff a few times, and that was an administrative decision to do that. And they had the right to do that. So.
I guess they have the right to do that. At the same time, I think it just seems it's been in the current place, or not the current place now, but where it's been for years. So why all of a sudden is it not okay where it was? And we excuse me, we kind of had thoughts for that space, but now they're there. It kind of hinders what we were thinking.
Okay. Yeah. Their space was cramped. That's probably why they went that way, being it was available. And if there's other concerns, certainly bring it to our attention and see what we can do. Thank you.
Just as a follow-up to put it on the radar, and I don't have an answer for this, there's been questions on the other part of the building that they're not moving into. As far as veteran service and ADRC needing additional storage space, that the area that's currently leased out to Northwest Passage, thank you, could use, or some things coming out of the CJCC. I think those are still evolving. Told ADRC and Tim and I have talked, well, let's get the people down there before we decide that they need more space. And then we'll go from there.
Second part of that letter B, internet service update. We have going out to the highway and to the airport. Mike, can I give us a brief update, please?
There's a Hayward fire tower off B now has electricity. Its primary purpose is for law enforcement. So that's still kind of being fleshed out. We decided to put some antennas up there to help out highway and airport. And today we were able to finish the network, well, at least partially the network for the airport. So their phone service is now running over that radio network. So it needs to be tuned a little more, but we feel it should be stable.
Good. Are we making progress onto the highway?
That's next. We have to mount an antenna in the rear of the building and run a wire from the rear of the building to the front office. So it's just a matter of, some time to do that.
Thank you. All right, seems like we're jumping around on the agenda. I guess we are. Number 11, courthouse remodel updates. Andy, you want to give them a brief update on that?
Yep. Sure. So in your agenda is the update right from the contractor regarding their progress. They are, they indicated at our last progress meeting that they're probably about, could use an extra day to catch up on some things. I'm sure the weather this week has not been real cooperative for them making any additional progress. I did want to share something that we've been part of the, I mean, as far as their side, the budget is doing fine. There's been no indications of any material shortages or other delays that getting the work that they're doing. But as soon as I can pull it up, I can explain a little better.
They're still meeting every 2 weeks. Their meeting time used to be at 9 in the morning, and I've talked to Andy why it changed to 11. This doesn't work for me, but one person.
Yeah, they changed it so they can do their, because then they didn't ask us, honest with you. They changed it because that they'll have their project team for Myron here and the project team for Venture. So after they have our update meeting with us, they have their construction update at the same time.
They're going to change it, but they don't know it yet.
So this, let me pull this up here. What I'm putting up on the screen is the project budget. This is the kind of outlines all the everything that's in the guaranteed price from Myron. You can see it. This is how they bid it out, and they break it down by the different components of the construction. So the construction total is $8,704,668. That includes the contingency fund, the construction managed contingency of $399,735. That's plotted in there when you agreed to the contract with them. That contingency is there for them to use, and they can't just use it. We have to go approve these things or be knowledgeable of them. But that's, as you know, not the total construction cost. Total cost is $10,157,000 because there's a number of items that are the county's responsibility. So we've started to really dig into those. That includes the California Avenue project, which is closing of 5th Street, it's $395. The fiber optic utility relocates, furniture, video equipment, design fees, all those. So the design fee is already pretty well done with Venture. California Avenue is done, so we'll be paying. We've paid out the design fee. We have an invoice for California Avenue to the city that we'll be paying. Some of these items though are coming in over budget. I just wanted to let you know that. So there was $26,124 put in there for fiber optic utility relocates. That ended up being about double that.
I thought that was a low number.
Yep. So that, I mean, these were budgeted in as part of the project. So that was, I think Century Links bill alone was that amount. And then we, when the project was put together by Venture, they used some providers like in working with the county, like the video court equipment was designed by AVI, and that was the price that they estimated during the planning process. AVI came back with an actual quoted price a couple weeks ago of
245,000.
Yep. So about 40,000 over this amount. So Mike and I have talked with our group here, and Mike's taking that out to find a better price. Try to find a better price and try to get it in budget. Same thing with the furniture. They brought in EBI provider, so that quote came in at about 100, and I think that's about 140,000 now. So we are revisiting that, looking at options of, using another contractor for a competitive price, right on down to having maintenance bill. This includes the desks and cabinets in the offices. Maintenance seems to do a fine job with the ones they've built already, so Tim's pricing out doing that. I mean, we're not gonna build chairs, but some of the desks and tables, maybe we can do locally or internally to try to bring that price back in line.
Now, before we had prices of even example would be like the boardroom. So maybe that would be looked at also.
Yep.
Perhaps.
Yeah, we're looking at everything within the furniture area. So just wanted to make you aware we are looking at this. The one thing I want to point out though, is so when these items go over budget, we can't automatically go grab contingency to cover this, because that's
their contingency.
That's their contingency. So if we do end up swapping out or taking out the generator out of the project, it's gonna be our contingency.
Okay.
So we'll keep it budget that way.
Mr. Schuman, do you have a question?
No, you answered.
Thank you. Questions with that? It's an ongoing process, and it's only gonna get better, I'm sure, but we'll continue to watch it the best we can. Number 12, review board policy procedure manual. Roles, responsibilities, discussion and possible action.
So this is, we're reviewing the board policy manual. I did not get this done until today, so. The other committees that have looked at it, they're bringing theirs back next month. So, sounds good. Copy for you to review. I kind of came up with the draft for Public Works. There was nothing listed in the board policies currently. Heavily borrowed from land, water conservation, some of the general items. But designating it, so I'll just run through it quickly. Mission is develop guide and implement policies that address management and operation of county facilities and infrastructure between maintenance, airport, and highway. I think that's kind of summarizing that. That's the committee of jurisdiction for those three departments. It's 5 members appointed by the chair with the approval of the board. It's designated as the highway committee per Wisconsin statutes, which it's part of its role. Also as the designated airport committee. Address policy related to operation of county facilities. Reviews budgets for departments subject to committee jurisdiction, provides recommendations to the administrator. That's similar to a couple of the other committees. Reviews utilization of county facilities, space needs, and capital improvements. Approves contracts and agreements, pertaining facilities and infrastructure where the counterparty requires board approval. And those are forwarded to the board. Deal with all other issues of policy raised by departments. Subject to the committee's jurisdiction while avoiding interfering with the day-to-day operation of county government. Receives monthly reports from the department subject to the committee's jurisdiction. Approve annual goals and objectives and long-range plans for departments subject to the committee's jurisdiction. Approve grant requests for departments subject to the committee's jurisdiction. For such approval is required by the grantor. And then forward to the county board. Review and approve airport agreements, management contracts, contract for services and leases. Those approvals are forwarded to the county board for approval. Monitor building projects, including new construction and remodeling. So that's my crack at it. Read it, provide input, and then I would suggest bring it back next month.
We'll put it on the agenda for
Yep.
next one. Questions, concerns?
I guess we have a number of different things to review. I would like some clarification on what the process of that will be. Should we just pass our suggestions on to you, Mr. Chair, or to the administrator, or?
Why don't you pass them on to both of us, please?
Okay.
Then we can both look at it. We can bring it back on the agenda. And everybody can have another shot at it. I mean, we don't have to have this approved immediately, but get in the process. It'll get into the rules of the board's probably. When the board changed, we used to have a committee for airport. We used to have a committee for highway. And I'm not sure where the maintenance fell in. I think they fell in with another committee. We changed all that, what was it, 16? that made a big difference in changing, and we didn't have so many meetings, combined a bunch of them, because some meetings were lasting 15 minutes, half an hour. Well, I'm not driving that far up here just for a meeting that long. So it really helped a lot. And we've made a lot of progress with that. And like anything, when you make progress, there's going to be changes coming forward continually, and that's what we have to continue to do. So this is just one of those steps. We put together them again in 16, and things have changed. We have to change with it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to know what our assignment was, and what the deadline would be then for getting it onto the agenda, or included into the discussion next time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say send it now, bring it here.
Yeah, I don't have any particular things that stand out to me right now. I just was.
Okay. Future agenda items. Well, obviously this is going to be on there. We'll have the ordinance for the ATV, UTV again. The airport with the runway information stuff, that's going to be a constant coming forward. And we're not done building the second court room yet, so that'll be constantly on there. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to put on there, or if they think of something else they would like to add, feel free to comment anytime during the month. Hey, can we do this or can we do that? Because we're certainly open to that. Okay. Correspondence. Heard me talk long enough. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
And you have two resolutions to sign.